Welcome back. My name is Daniel, and I was 31 when my marriage started falling apart. My wife, Jessica, was 29. We had been married for 3 years, and from the outside, we looked like one of those couples that had it together. We both worked professional jobs. I was in finance, and she worked in marketing. We were not rich, but we were comfortable. Our combined income was around $140,000 a year, and that gave us a pretty steady life. We had an apartment we liked, a budget we actually stuck to, and a plan to save for a house. We split most of the bills 60-40 based on income, which had always felt fair to both of us. I paid a little more because I made a little more. She handled some of the shared expenses, and we never really fought about money. That was one of the things I thought made us strong. We talked about practical things. We made decisions together. At least I thought we did. Jessica was smart. She had a bachelor's degree in marketing, and she had a decent job with benefits, paid time off, and a retirement match. It was the kind of job a lot of people would have been grateful to keep. She was good at it too. She was organized, creative, and usually pretty grounded, or so I believed. Then, about 6 weeks before everything blew up, she came home from work and told me she was giving her 2 weeks' notice the next day. I remember looking up from my laptop and just staring at her. I thought maybe she was joking. She had that calm, determined look on her face, the one she got when she had already decided something and was only telling me because she had to. She said she was making the jump. I asked her what she meant. She told me she was going full-time into content creation. At first, I honestly did not understand what she was saying. Then she explained it. She had been building an audience on OnlyFans and a premium Snapchat account for 3 months. She said she was making almost $3,000 a month just from feet pictures, and once she had more time, she thought she could triple that. I just sat there for a second, trying to make my brain catch up. My wife had been doing this for 3 months and had not told me. Not once. That was the first crack in the floor. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. I asked her why she did not tell me. She said she wanted to make sure it was viable first. She said now it was. She said it was passive income because she posted a few times a week and the money just came in. I told her that was not really passive if she had to keep creating content. She said it was more passive than a 9 to 5. That was the kind of answer that tells you someone has already rehearsed the argument in their head. So I asked about the numbers. I asked how much she was making. She said about $3,000 a month. I did the math out loud, $36,000 a year. She was planning to quit a job that paid $62,000 a year with benefits for something that currently made less than half of that. She told me she would make more once she went full-time. Maybe $9,000 a month, maybe more. I asked where that number came from. She said other creators in her niche made that much. I asked how long they had been doing it. She did not know. I asked whether they had years of experience. She said maybe. That detail matters. Remember it. I was not trying to crush her dream. I was trying to understand how she had gone from a stable career to a fantasy spreadsheet in one afternoon. I told her I thought she was moving too fast. I told her she was comparing 3 months of experience to people who had been doing this for years. I told her she was walking away from a real salary for a maybe. She got defensive fast. She said I was being negative. She said she thought I would support her. I told her I was being realistic, not negative. I said we could revisit it in 6 months if the income kept growing. I said she could build it on the side and prove it was sustainable before quitting a job with benefits. She said I was trying to control her. That word landed hard. I remember feeling like I had stepped into a conversation I did not recognize anymore. We argued for an hour. Then 2. I laid out every financial concern I could think of. She kept saying I was unsupportive. I kept saying she was being reckless. Neither of us really heard the other by the end. The next day, she gave her notice anyway. 2 weeks later, she was unemployed and calling herself a full-time creator. From my point of view, that mostly meant she was home taking pictures of her feet in different socks, different angles, and different lighting setups while I went to work and tried to pretend my marriage had not just taken a strange turn. At first, I told myself to give it time. People change careers. People take risks. Maybe I was being too rigid. Maybe she really had found something that worked for her. I did not want to be the husband who crushed his wife's confidence because I was too attached to a paycheck and a retirement account. But then the little things started adding up. She began spending money like she was still earning a full salary. New pedicures every week. New nail polish constantly. Socks in every color and texture. Little ankle jewelry, props for photos, a ring light, a better camera, a photo shoot setup. Every time I looked at the credit card statement, there was another purchase that she called a business expense. I asked her how she was tracking all of that for taxes. She looked at me like I had started speaking another language. I asked whether she was keeping receipts. She said not really. I asked whether she was setting aside money for taxes. She said she would figure it out. I told her self-employment tax alone was around 15%, and with income tax, she should probably be setting aside closer to 30%. She waved me off like I was being dramatic. A few weeks later, I asked about quarterly estimated taxes. She had no idea what I was talking about. I explained it again. I told her that self-employed people do not just wait until April and hope for the best. I told her she had to pay throughout the year. She said it sounded complicated. I said it was not complicated, just necessary. She said she would look into it. She did not. I checked our joint account and started doing the math myself. 1 month she deposited $2,800. She spent about $1,200 on business expenses. That meant she had netted around $1,600. Her old job had paid her about $4,200 a month after taxes. She was making less than half of what she used to make, and she was spending money like she had never left her old life behind. I brought up our budget. I said we needed to adjust things. She told me it was temporary. I asked how long temporary meant. She said however long it took. I asked whether that meant I was covering the difference in the meantime. She said we were married and we were a team. I remember thinking, a team does not usually mean one person quits without a plan and the other person quietly absorbs the fallout. But I did not say that. I was already tired of the argument, and I still wanted to believe there was a version of this where she figured it out and I did not have to become the bad guy. Then she started posting about her new life on Instagram. She called herself an entrepreneur, a content creator. She posted motivational quotes about choosing yourself and building your empire. Meanwhile, I was covering her half of the rent, her half of the utilities, her car insurance, her phone bill, and every other shared expense she used to handle. The thing that really started bothering me was the tax issue. I brought it up again and again. I asked whether she had filed quarterly estimated taxes. I asked whether she knew what would happen if she did not report the income. She kept brushing me off. Then one night I did the math more carefully. If she was really making $3,000 a month, that was $36,000 a year. But if she was making more than she told me, then the tax problem could be much bigger. I asked her directly whether she planned to report the income to the IRS. She said maybe it is cash. It was not cash. It was electronic payments. I knew that. She knew that. Every platform she used would issue tax forms once she passed the reporting threshold. I told her that. She looked worried for maybe 5 seconds, then shrugged and said she would deal with it when it happened. That was when I realized she was not just being careless. She was refusing to face reality. And then I found out how bad it really was. One weekend, while she was out, I logged into her laptop. I know that sounds like a line I should not cross, and maybe it was not my finest moment. But we were married, and she had been lying to me for weeks. I needed to know what I was dealing with. Her password was our anniversary. That alone made me feel sick. I opened her browser and found her creator dashboard. She had almost 500 subscribers on one platform and more than 200 on another. The monthly revenue was not $3,000. It was more than $8,000. I stared at the numbers for a long time, trying to make them mean something else. They did not. She had been lying to me about her income, not by a little, by a lot. I checked her payment accounts and found money moving through PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, and a separate bank account I did not know existed. She had opened it only 2 months earlier. There was around $18,000 sitting there. Another few thousand was spread across the other platforms. Then I went back through her transaction history and saw the full pattern. January, February, March, April, the numbers kept climbing. She had made about $31,000 in 4 months and reported none of it, not $1. I also found her expense spreadsheet. It was a mess. Some purchases were listed, most were not. She had tracked the camera and the ring light, but not the weekly pedicures or the constant little purchases that added up over time. There were no receipts attached. There was no system. It was just a collection of excuses with a heading. Then I checked our credit card statements and found something that made my stomach drop. She had been charging business expenses to my card. Ulta, Sephora, nail salons, a boutique sock store, more nail salons, hundreds of dollars at a time. About $6,000 total had gone through our shared finances without me realizing it. At that point, I was no longer thinking about whether she had a side hustle. I was thinking about deception. She had hidden the income, hidden the account, hidden the spending, and ignored the taxes. I felt like I had been standing in my own house while someone quietly moved the walls around me. I kept digging because I wanted context, and because by then I was too angry to stop. Her content was not just feet. There were suggestive poses, captions, and requests from subscribers that made it very clear what kind of business this really was. I am not here to judge sex work. I am judging the fact that she lied to me about what she was doing and expected me to bankroll it while pretending it was some harmless side income. Then I thought about her parents. Jessica came from a very religious family, the kind of religious that does not just go to church but builds their whole identity around it. Her dad was a pastor. Her mom ran a Christian women's ministry. They were the kind of people who thought Harry Potter was dangerous and believed the world was falling apart because of moral decay. Jessica had rebelled against all of that in college, but she still kept in touch. She called her mom every Sunday. She visited them at Christmas. She had told them she quit her job to freelance in marketing. They had no idea what she was actually doing. That was the part that kept echoing in my head. Not just that she had lied to me, but that she was still collecting the comfort of family while hiding the truth from them. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. By Sunday night, I had made my decision. Monday morning, she left to work from a coffee shop and do her usual photo routine. The second she was gone, I got to work. I created a burner email address and sent a message to her father's church email. I attached screenshots from her public creator page. I did not include anything explicit, but it was enough to make the point. I told him he should know what his daughter was really doing for work. Then I filled out a tax fraud referral with the IRS. I included her name, our address, the estimated income, and screenshots of the dashboards showing what she had earned. I attached the messages where I had asked her about taxes and she had brushed me off. I included the bank records and the payment history I had found. I also saved everything to a cloud drive in case I needed it later. That evening, she came home smiling. She said she had had a productive photo shoot and thought she might hit $10,000 that month. I told her that was great news. She smiled at me like nothing in the world was wrong. I felt absolutely nothing. 2 days later, her father called. I was at work when Jessica texted me in a panic, saying her dad had seen her account. She called me crying, saying he had called her a disgrace and told her he never wanted to see her again. Her mother had cried and hung up on her. She kept asking if I had any idea who could have sent the screenshots. I told her I had no idea. She was hysterical. She cried for an hour. She called her parents over and over, but they would not answer. I ordered pizza that night and ate it while she sat on the couch sobbing. 3 weeks later, the IRS letter arrived. She opened it at the kitchen table while I made coffee. I heard the paper shake in her hands before I heard her voice. She asked me what it was. I asked her to read it. It was an audit notice. Her face went white. She asked how they even knew. She said she had not filed yet. I told her the platforms probably reported the income automatically. I told her I had warned her this would happen. She started asking what she was supposed to do. I told her to get a tax professional. She said she did not have money for that. I told her then she would have to handle it herself. She looked at me like I had betrayed her. Then she asked if I was going to help her. I told her I was not a CPA. I was not going to walk her through an audit she created by ignoring every warning I gave her. She said I knew about taxes. I told her I knew enough to know she had made a terrible decision. Then she asked if I had reported her. I said yes. She went completely still. Then I told her I had also sent the screenshots to her father. She stared at me like she had never seen me before. She asked why I would do that. I told her because she had spent months living in a fantasy where she could quit her job, hide her income, ignore taxes, spend my money, and face no consequences. I told her I had simply made the consequences real. She said I had ruined her relationship with her parents. I told her no. She had done that when she chose to lie to them. She said she was only posting feet pictures. I told her that if she wanted to call it that, fine, but she had also been taking requests, posting suggestive content, and making serious money from it. She could not pretend it was innocent when it suited her and then call it empowering when she wanted sympathy. She told me she wanted a divorce. I told her that was probably for the best. The next few days were quiet in a way that felt almost unreal. She moved out 3 days later and stayed with a friend. Her parents stopped talking to her. The audit kept moving forward. From what I understood through the lawyers, she ended up owing around $11,000 in taxes, penalties, and interest. Her income dropped after she stopped posting for a while. She eventually went back to work, this time in retail, making $16 an hour. We are divorcing now. No kids, no house, just a lease that runs out in a few months and a marriage that never recovered from the moment she decided honesty was optional. I want to give you an update because a lot has changed. The biggest change is that I have had time to sit with what happened, and that has been harder than the confrontation itself. In the moment, I was angry. I was tired. I felt used. But later, when the house got quiet, I had to ask myself what kind of husband I had been and what kind of line I had crossed. I do not think I was wrong to be upset about the money. I do not think I was wrong to be furious about the tax issue. I do not think I was wrong to feel betrayed when I found out how much she had hidden. But I also know that sending those screenshots to her father was not a small thing. It was a deliberate choice, and I made it while I was hurt. I think what hurt most was not what she did, it was what it meant. It meant she did not trust me enough to tell me the truth. It meant she was willing to let me carry the financial burden while she built a secret life. It meant she was comfortable asking me for support while hiding the full picture. That changes how you see someone, not all at once, slowly, then all at once. Grief is strange. It does not always look the way you expect. I was grieving a marriage long before the divorce papers were ever mentioned. I was grieving the version of Jessica I thought I knew. I was grieving the idea that we were partners. And I was grieving the fact that I had spent years believing that honesty was the one thing we would never lose. What I learned about myself is that I can stay calm for a long time, maybe too long. I can explain, warn, and compromise until I am empty. Then, when I finally feel cornered, I can become very decisive. That is not always a good trait, It can make you effective. It can also make you cruel if you are not careful. If I could do one thing differently, I would probably leave sooner. Not because I think she deserved to be abandoned, but because I stayed long enough to become someone I did not like very much. I became the person checking accounts, saving screenshots, and planning a response instead of just walking away when the trust was gone. Still, I cannot pretend I was the only one making choices. She chose secrecy. She chose denial. She chose to treat warnings like obstacles instead of information. That is where all of this started. The strange part is that I do not hate her. I am angry at her. I am disappointed in her, but I do not hate her. I think she wanted freedom without responsibility, and she convinced herself that confidence was the same thing as a plan. That is a dangerous combination. I also think she underestimated how much damage financial dishonesty can do in a marriage. People talk about cheating, lying, and betrayal, but money problems can hollow out a relationship in a quieter way. They make you question every conversation, every promise, every explanation. Right now, I am in a smaller apartment by myself, and it is peaceful in a way I did not realize I needed. I am rebuilding my savings. I am not funding anyone else's experiments. I am not checking someone else's tax situation. I am just living. As for Jessica, I heard she is still working retail and trying to keep up with the audit payment plan. I do not know whether she has changed. I hope she has. I hope she learned that being independent is not the same as being careless. I hope she understands that consequences are not the same as punishment. But I am not waiting around to find out. So I have to ask you, if your spouse quit a stable job, hid a much higher income from you, ignored taxes, and expected you to quietly support the whole thing, would you expose the truth the way I did, or would you walk away first? Because I still think about it. And I genuinely do not know if I made the right call. Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and if you want more stories like this, you already know what to do.